Good evening, everybody. Madam Clerk?
Okay, Councilmember Von Rudenberg. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Here.
Councilmember Pataglia. Mayor LaBrus.
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Notice of having been published according to law with a copy on file in the city clerk's office and a copy posted on the municipal bulletin board in City Hall.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn it over to our city manager for the agenda. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight for the Council of the Whole agenda, Tuesday, September 26th. First is a presentation for Main Street Streetscape from Fran Ryder from DMR.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much. We have been working, I've been working
You
with...
just moved it, Fran.
Thank you. Albert?
Can you see?
We've been working with Boswell on developing some streetscape concepts and wanted to present them to you this evening. Just by way of understanding of why we're making this presentation, we're here to present conceptual plans for the streetscape design to determine if the city is comfortable with that direction, and then if you are, to develop details and standards that can be adopted by the city for the streetscapes in the downtown. That would be required for both public and private projects. This will be the last slide that I have actual text. The rest of it's going to be images but what we have in the downtown is, under the existing conditions, is most of the buildings on Main Street are approximately 8 to 10 foot set back off of the back of curb. So that's your existing sidewalk conditions. Up and down Main Street, there's a variety of light fixtures for both pedestrian and also overhead vehicular. There's a variety of street furniture, a variety of materials in terms of the actual paving. To this point, the city's been awarded a significant amount of grants for streetscape improvements that Boswell has submitted for, and maybe Pete can just kind of give us an update on where that is.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we've been working with your grants person, Peter Blanos, and Fran, and the city manager, and we've been very successful as a city getting grants from the NJDOT. We have, in 2015, we got a municipal aid grant in the amount of $159,200, and that funded the first section from Anderson Ave just toward north of Ward Street. We got a 2016 municipal aid grant in the amount of $170,861, and that's going to pick up where that left off and go toward Passaic Street. And we were recently awarded in 2017 a grant of $179,269, and this is off from the local aid program, and we're going to continue from around Passaic Street headed south, depending on where the dollars take us in our cost estimates. And then we were successful in getting a transportation alternative program grant in the amount of $1 million. It's federal funded for streetscape improvements from Court Street to Mercer Street. That totals of amount of $1,509,330. And we've just recently, in fact, next week we'll be applying for another local aid grant from the municipal aid program for another section of the streetscape going south toward Mercer Street, so we continue the program we got.
Just to note, also Wayne and Albert have been integral in this process. What we've proposed in the downtown in terms of the rehabilitation and redevelopment plans is that you're required to have an 18-foot building setback when you tear a building down and are building a new development on Main Street, 12-foot setbacks on any other side streets. The developers are required to install a new streetscape in front of their buildings and in front of any part of their property that touches a public street. And what we're trying to do here is create a uniform streetscape in terms of furniture, lighting, benches, and materials. And the real question and the issue that we have to deal with is how to create a uniform streetscape with new development, but also how to tie in existing development where buildings will not be redeveloped and we have streetscape in that location. So just to take a quick little drive down Main Street and talk about some of these issues, this is starting at the courthouse. You can see on the left, you can see the dimension of the buildings and the sidewalk are anywhere from 8 to 10 feet. These are existing conditions. As you move down towards Atlantic Street on the left, you can see again, that's about an 8-foot. You can see the difference with the large overhead lights, which are out of scale from a pedestrian standpoint. On the left is existing conditions of development, whereas on the right, this is 150, 170, which will require an 18-foot building step back. So that is the condition of new development across the street from what will be existing property that will likely maintain its current configuration. And then as you move down to 210 Main Street, again, you can see the thin nature of the sidewalks as you go down Main Street. Very little character. The street furniture is all over the place in terms of the actual materials. There's very few street trees, very few pedestrian lights. This is going down just past Berry Street, and then when you get past Passaic. So I just wanted to show you the lack of really a defined design in terms of what the street should look like. This is what we're trying to improve. The design criteria that we're looking at is, and this would be a typical cross-section if there were new development on both sides, which would be the street in the middle is somewhere between 38 and 42 feet wide. We would then have what we call a furniture or planting zone that's typically 4 foot, a pedestrian zone, which would be 11 foot, and then what we call a shy zone, whereas people don't walk within 2 feet. So what we want to try and do is create a real defined street environment. And this would be a section of what Main Street would look like under the new design standards, again, if development were on both sides, new development were on both sides. And then this is what it would look like between the sections of Essex and Atlantic Street, which is 2 lanes with 1 lane of parking. So we try to come up with a design that both work from an existing conditions dealing with the 8 to 10 foot and also from the 18 foot so that it would look like a uniform streetscape on both sides. And so what we're showing here on the right is our concept. The red represents brick, the gray represents concrete. So you have a 4-foot strip which would include where the street lights would go, where the grates would go underneath the trees, and benches and bollards would go there as well. And then the picture on the left just depicts a street environment that might be similar to what this concept depicts on the right. Again, you can see the brick. This picture on the left shows an open pit. We're looking at grates, but again, you can see how defined the 4-foot area is, and then the sidewalk, concrete sidewalk, goes the rest of the way. The reason why we want to have the defined area and then concrete is because the buildings change. They'll go from 8 foot to 10 foot to 12 foot to 18 foot back to 8 foot. So we don't want to have pavers all the way to the building because it'll look odd in terms of how the design works. So we wanted to create a nice uniform line along the street and then have the concrete go back to the buildings regardless of whether they're existing or they're new. Again, you can see some tighter examples on the top where you have a short area and then a small concrete sidewalk, just showing you that this is the type of design that's been done all over the country. We also looked at it from a color scheme in terms of actual pavers rather than bricks. The design image on the left with the 2 trees and what looks like the white between. Around the grates, we're looking at requiring a 12-foot pit to be dug out by the developer and new topsoil be put in, so when the tree is planted, it allows the roots to grow, as opposed to just cutting out a 4x4 where the tree will die in the future if you don't allow the root system to go. So what we'd like to do is require that there's a pit, and on the left is the section, so that the developer and or the city, as they implement their streetscape, would actually provide an opportunity for those street trees to really survive and thrive in the future. And then you can see on the ones on the right represents a 2 benches and a trash receptacle in the middle. Again, another just image on the left of what that has looked like from other examples with the gray paving materials. And then a lighter gray paving material, again, just showing the same kind of design in terms of the pit. This is all based on the 8 to 10 foot. Now we look at the 18-foot setback on new development. You can see that the first 4 feet, which is where the benches and bollards are on the left image and where the light fixture is on the right, is the same regardless of whether or not it's along an 8 to 10 foot existing condition or an 18-foot new development. The difference on the new development is we're bringing bands across. The darker color represents pavers, the lighter color represents concrete, and then we're doing a band along the edge of the building since we can define that 18-foot very clearly. And so what it might look like, and this is a rendering of 150, 170, which I'm happy to say will be back under construction here shortly, and vertical development will start in 2018. But you can see on the bottom image the 18-foot in front of 170 Main Street, where you have, and then on the bottom is the 8 to 10 foot across the street. So you can see that the first 4 foot will be very similar in terms of the design, so that when you're driving down the street, it would look very uniform. One of the other things that we've looked at, we're very excited about that I think is an opportunity in the city. We do in the rehabilitation plan identify Banta Place as a potential future public open space, public plaza, where on weekends and maybe some Thursday night, Friday night, weeknights could be closed down and could be converted into more of a pedestrian way. And so what that image would look like and what we'd like to try and move forward with at some point in the future, albeit with developers, is to convert Banta into this type of street. So again, just to go back, this is existing conditions with 210 Main Street in the foreground, in the background, and this is a similar street that's been designed that was a driving street, has really been completely converted over, but it's cobble, it represents more of a pedestrian. They use bollards to define the sidewalks when cars and emergency vehicles are allowed to use the street, and there's mobile planting beds located in the middle. So that's something that we've looked at and or like to help the city move forward with. In terms of the pavers, we're looking at Hanover. We've circled the 2 different colors in gray. The red would be typical brick colors, so that we didn't put up an example of that, but those are the 2 colors we'd like to stick to. Predominantly want to go with lighter colors. Gray is a better color on the street, especially when you have architecture that has been predominantly red and brick. You don't want to have the buildings being red and the street being red. It becomes almost too dominant of a color. So we're suggesting that the majority of the street be a gray type of material, be the concrete and the pavers. We're proposing to continue the street furniture that's been developed and placed into Atlantic Street Park. So you have the bench on the top left, the bicycle rack, trash receptacle, and you can see one of the new bus stops that have been located. And then on the bottom right is one of the grates. There's been a question about whether or not those grates should be painted black or whether or not they should be allowed to rust black. Okay. And then in terms of the trees that we're looking at on the street, we have identified with the tree commission. Wayne, I'm looking to you. Is it Shade Tree Commission? The Shade Tree Commission, we've identified a series of street trees that we think would be good. I think you want to have a variety of street trees, not too many, but different sections should have a couple of different street trees. So the honey locust is an excellent urban tree, deals very well with salt. London plane tree grows very large. It's probably one we would shy away from. The silver linden is a very good street tree as well, and the ginkgo is a pretty good street tree as well. So of those 4, we think we have 3 really good ones, and I think that that's enough in terms of the variety of materials for the street trees. Just to show you 2 different options and where they would maybe be located. Area 1 would be the red brick, because a lot of that area already has the red brick, so we think that keeping that kind of motif would be appropriate down from what essentially is Atlantic Street to Essex Street. And then in Area 2, which would go from Atlantic to Mercer, and then from Salem to Berry, would be the gray on the bottom, which would be the darker gray pavers with the concrete in the middle. Area 3, which is the green, would be more of the cobble type feel, which would be Banta Place and would actually extend through Main Street. And then on Area 4 would be the lighter gray, which, as Pete had mentioned, there's already been some improvements made there with the lighter gray pavers, so we think that those are an appropriate way to break the street up. And then the other option would be simply to keep the cobble on Banta Place and have the darker gray go all the way from Mercer all the way to, I apologize, all the way to Passaic Street. So that's kind of where we are. The impetus for this is that we have a series of developers that are under construction with projects that are coming to the end of the line with in the next 6 to 12 months, and they're starting to get antsy about the requirement of the streetscape. And every time they come to the planning board, we make them make the statement that they will work with the city to determine what that streetscape is, including materials and colors. And they're starting to make phone calls and ask us for what those streetscape materials need to be. And we'd like to be able to codify that and have everybody make sure they're meeting the same standards. And as Pete and Wayne and Albert and the city manager and I continue to move forward on the grants, that we know exactly what we're putting in so that we can cost it out right and figure out how to make the entire Main Street uniform design. And with that, I'll take questions.
Questions?
Good job, Frank.
Yeah, no, we totally like especially the Banta Place part. But we'll have to make a decision, I guess, on, I mean, the materials I'm fine with. I don't know if anybody else has any issues with the
No
materials?
rusty tree yards. We've already talked about this a number of times.
Yes.
Like black.
I've heard you.
Yeah, the grates, even when I look at them now, they said they'd weather away and they, kind of take care of the rust. But
We will make them a requirement of powder coated.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Yes, we all
Black
like
powder
black.
coat.
We're having
We
a
all like
discussion about that yet. The problem with the powder coated is when we do snow removal, we chip the edge of the powder coating and the water and rust gets underneath and it peels the powder coating up. I can show you examples of that. I can also show you examples of rusted ones that have turned black. Next time we get together, I'll make sure I have some pictures of what the older grades.
But when they turn black, is your lifetime or my lifetime or what?
No,
How long is it gonna
they
take?
peel right away. Powder coat.
No, we're talking about the rust.
I was in Hoboken over the weekend,
Yeah.
and they black, but they bake it and they look beautiful.
Okay.
Okay, and if no way I leave myself, I'm gonna go without.
I'll do more research on it and I'll show you.
Well,
some
you
pictures.
better look at it.
They're
I
not
will
very
go-
attractive
I'll
over there, but
research it for
by
you.
the park, it looks not too
You
nice.
know, I'll look it up. I'll check it out.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Thank you.
It's got to be aesthetically pleasing, and the rust ones.
So you see, you got the benches, they look black.
Yes.
The post black. The business for the bicycle black. You gonna have that there? No way else.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Fran.
And the other
Thank you,
thing,
Pete.
before I forgot, whatever you're gonna use to control the people walking in the streets and the corners,
Yes.
it's gonna be with that type, they got now that they give you like 20 seconds or 50 seconds to cross the street.
You're gonna have, I believe they're all countdown signals.
Yeah, okay.
And we've met, Pete, Wayne, and I have met about putting some planters in certain areas, or at least landscape in certain areas to protect pedestrians, especially at some of the corners and like Demarest Place where the walk from the bus station to the garage. So we're working on that, on identifying and making sure we make the pedestrian crosswalks as safe as possible.
And we have to enforce no bicycles on the sidewalks.
I noticed you had the bus stop on there, but there's actually not going to be any bus stops on Main Street.
No.
They'll be on the side streets.
That particular bus stop will stay because at Ward Street, it'll go on to State Street. So
Okay.
that one will stay, but there will be no bus stops from Passaic to Essex.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
And we verified that none of these sidewalks are less than 8 foot, and that 4 foot is acceptable for walking.
Yes, because it's a grate system, that the 4 foot is, you can use the dimension of to the tree, to the trunk as a part of the handicap, but everything is 8 foot or greater. Yeah.
Now, when they're gonna do the sidewalks, right? They're gonna replace every curb in Main Street, the way everything gonna look uniform? They're
So
gonna
the
be the
street-
same like we got in the State Street, that one area look brand new and the other area you didn't even get a curb.
Yeah, so the goal here is I believe the two-way street conversion will convert all of the radiuses.
Yes.
And
Handicap ramps.
so all the handicap ramps and radiuses of all the corners will be converted as a part of the two-way streetscape. A developer comes in, all the developers like 150 Main Street, 240 Main Street, which is under construction, the Ward Street project, which was up on Main Street, they will be required to do new streetscape for the entire length of their property along Main Street and then any side street. And the goal here with the $1.5 million is then to have the city, where there are areas that development isn't happening, to build a new streetscape in those areas so that we are not having a patchwork of new development with new streetscape and old streetscape right next to each other.
Yeah, but that was the same idea for the State Street, right, or no?
Well, if a developer has a development that goes onto State Street, like the Ward Street project has frontage on Main Street, Ward Street, and State Street, they're required to do new streetscape all around it. We have not gone out for grant money for improving streetscape on State Street. All of the grants that we've gone out and successfully gotten have been all for Main Street at this point.
Because State Street look new,
I agree.
all, nothing.
We're trying
Okay.
to move from the north down, or from the, north to the south. And then once we finish Main Street, the city's been very successful in getting grants with Millennium, then we would, I think, turn our attention to State Street and look for grants there. This is a large lift in terms of financial lift for the city, the fact that they've been able to secure so much funds. We're just trying to be smart with the timing and the amount of money we can do and then the work we can do to make Main Street, revitalize all of Main Street with the streetscape. The benefit is that the grants that we've gotten accounted for some of the development. So in other words, we went out for a grant from Anderson Street to Passaic Street, and the amount of money was to do that whole area. We have Ward Street's the developer's gonna do it himself, so we're gonna be able to take some of that money and now move south of Passaic Street and start. So we're collecting money and moving down the street. State Street will be probably the next series of grants that we go after we complete Main Street. Is that fair?
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, number 2 discussion is the repeal and reintroduction of the Continental Plaza redevelopment plan. Apparently, there was a issue.
We're not opening this to the public?
No.
At the end,
At the end.
at the end,
At the end?
at the end the end of this session, yes.
Hey,
Don't go away.
ah,
Go ahead.
Okay, so there was an issue, some communication, so the last approval has to be retracted and has to be reintroduced to the mayor and
Correct.
council. Number 3 is an appointment for the Shade Tree Commission. Debbie, can you help me with this name?
Amingia.
Amigia Rodas, to be approved to become a member of the Shade Tree Commission. Number 4 is an ordinance for the vacation of Poplar Avenue. There's been much discussion on this. Albert has been involved in this heavily. This is property that would be vacated and eventually a retail watch repair would be built on this property, and we would return some of this property on the tax rolls. And it's a small place, but I guess for watch repair, it would be appropriate for this gentleman, and we're trying to cultivate business, so with the approval and the vacation, that would lead to the development of this project, and the city could move forward
So that
Hey, could you
partic-
just give us the intersection streets of the public?
Yes,
Not all of Poplar, it's just a small.
no, let's see here.
Main
It is, go ahead. This
is that very small piece of Poplar between Linden and the Pascack Valley Railroad line, generally across the street from Target and Fairmount Eats.
It's behind that little triangular piece of property across.
Correct, Mayor.
No, from Maine to Linden.
From Maine
To Linden,
to...
if you're going west.
Yeah.
No, well, but it's Poplar from Linden to the railroad tracks.
Right.
It is
It's-
literally about as,
Yeah.
maybe the length of this room.
Okay, so
One
Linden
side of
ends
the
at-
property go to Main Street.
Yes, no. No,
Well,
you had to
one-
make, you had to make a left.
One, I think if I understand Councilman Bataglia's question, when Poplar is vacated, half of Poplar would go to the Main Street address, which is 625 Main Street. If that's your question. Half of the vacated portion of Poplar Avenue.
And
The other
The other half
would
would go to the Linden address, which I believe is 180 or 185 Linden.
It's a difficult street to plow. We do have some sewers underneath there that we would still have our right of way for, you know, to access the sewers. But it's a win for the city as far as maintenance and stuff with the street.
So there would no longer be, you couldn't cross, can you cross the tracks
No.
there now?
No.
I used to,
Can't.
used to.
be able to.
Used to.
It's blocked off, I mean,
It's
it's,
been blocked off
it's,
already, okay.
it's signed up.
Okay.
We do need a
I'm going
meet,
back in time now. I remember when you could cross it.
we do need a meets and bounds, though. We still don't have that. At least I don't, if we're gonna go forward.
Okay.
Correct, and through our manager, we have a proposal now from an engineering firm to do a meets and bounds, and he's provided a not to exceed, and my understanding is that the applicant, in this case, the owner of the proposed watch repair shop on 625 Main Street would cover those costs for the,
That would be appropriate, yeah.
So there should be no cost to the city for this. And in fact, it would become taxable property,
Right.
where it is not now, and
Correct.
we would no longer have to maintain it as well. So there's 3 plus.
Right. I'm glad I sold that.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ed.
Number 5, discussion, resolution supporting opposition to the legislative proposal for Oprah and OPMA. Mr. Kleinman,
Yeah, I mean,
heavily involved in this, so I think I'll just
Yeah.
remain silent.
I mean, these are, you know, I guess we call statements of opposition. One is to 2 pieces of legislation. One is to a proposed regulation by the Department of Community Affairs. You know, I got some information out to you specifically about the legislation. I don't know if you have any specific questions, you know, about it. But, you know, they kind of set forth in the resolutions what our concerns are and why we feel that it's something that the city council would like to oppose.
And in fact, isn't this something that the League of Municipalities is also doing this?
And many municipalities throughout
Well,
the
the
state.
Bergen League of
and,
Municipalities and the New Jersey League of Municipalities.
Both.
That's correct. I mean, there's a lot of concerns. There are some good aspects to some of this legislation, but there remain a lot of problems. And so the hope is that we could perhaps work together with the sponsors in order to get a better piece of legislation rather than the flawed piece that we have here today.
Okay.
And my last remaining is the opposing of employee compensation disclosure rule.
Again, I mentioned that briefly. This is a DCA regulation that would just add an administrative burden every time that we adopted a collective negotiations agreement and add additional paperwork with no funding to compensate the amount of time that we would have to engage in order to complete this paperwork. And again, sponsored by other municipalities throughout the state.
And my out-of-order haste is number 6, the public comments change. There's been prior discussion at prior council meetings to discuss whether the 3 minutes or 5 minutes is appropriate at the CAL meeting and also the regular meeting. Unfortunately, the 2 times that I think previously I've tried to do this, we had a little, not a full council here, so all council members weren't in attendance and didn't have the opportunity to speak about this. obviously, if we extend the amount of time, we have kind of a tight guideline here as far as Cal meeting, closed session, regular session. However, mayor and council have obviously all the rights in the world to remain or alter. I guess the city attorney will.
You know, I mean, the law requires that every time we have a public meeting and we treat the cow and we treat the, excuse me, the main council meeting as separate meetings, there has to be a meaningful opportunity for the public to participate. You know, my recommendation is that it can be as low as 3 minutes or as much as you want to, you know, provide as an opportunity to speak. You have complete flexibility whether to change the cow meeting or the regular meeting or neither or both. It's really up to you in terms of what you see would be the most efficient way in order for you to run the meetings. You know, obviously, we do sometimes run into time crunches during the cow meeting because of closed sessions that we need to participate in. You know, on the other hand, you know, cow sessions are more devoted to discussion. So, you know, it's really a preference of the council. It's an easy ordinance to draft. You just have to give Ted and me some direction as to whether you want to make any change, leave it as is, and if so, what the change would be.
I go for the 3 minutes and cow and the other regular meetings. For the simple reason that sometimes we barely got 5 minutes to discuss anything in the cow meeting. And sometimes the meetings and the second part extend so long that after 10 or 11 o'clock, everybody want to go home. We don't have no time to talk between ourselves about the problems in the city.
I mean, the other
Minutes
option.
should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, the other option you could do is you could say, you know, if more than, you know, I don't know that we actually physically have a sign-up sheet beforehand,
Yeah.
but you could have one, and if more than 10 people sign up, you know, have a rule that says 3 minutes, so that you know if it's only a couple of people, you can give them the 5 minutes without making the meetings extremely tedious. But if it's a day where, you know, 20 people show up and want to speak, you know, you could make that adjustment as well if you wanted to do it. We just want to lay it out so that everybody knows what the rules are, so no one says, oh, you're changing the rules on the fly.
But what happens if you
consistent.
make it so flexible, then you have a problem.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, you have a sign-up sheet beforehand. Many municipalities, you know, will have it to say, look, if you want to sign up, just sign up so we know who's coming. You know, you can have the order laid out more easily, and if there's more than 10 people that sign up to speak, then you adjust the
Our Board of
time.
Ed uses that.
But they don't allow you to have more, they still limit you to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
The Board of Ed doesn't allow you to have 5 minutes.
No, no.
Do you know, like, what other towns do? Is it 3 minutes, 5 minutes? What do you see more consistently? I know you,
Well, I mean, this is unusual because of the way you do the meetings, which is you have the cow with an opportunity to speak, and then you have the regular meeting with an opportunity to speak. Most places that have only one meeting a night would have 5 minutes, but technically here, you know, if someone wants to speak at the cow and the regular meeting, they have 10 minutes. So it's unusual the way that you set up your meetings here. I mean, I have seen 3, you know, as I said, I don't recommend, nor have I seen less than 3 minutes. Almost none go beyond 5. Again, it's the unusual way that Hackensack does the meetings back to back that makes it perhaps meaningful to try and shorten the meetings a little bit and perhaps change things up, you know, and reduce one or both. Because at the end of the day, at least during the evening, you know, if you even reduce it to 3 minutes for both, someone will have 6 minutes when, you know, most towns, they're going to have 5 minutes a meeting.
and, you know, we always make ourselves available after the council meeting. So if someone,
Yeah,
I mean,
somebody
and,
wanna
you know,
say something.
Ted always gets back to folks. We have a sign-in sheet. So if someone has a problem and can't get a resolution within 3 minutes, Ted's always been very helpful in getting back to them. And we always offer to stay at the end too. So if someone had something additional, we would be very happy to talk to them informally. And I mean, these meetings have been going very long and very late. And so I'm kind of leaning towards looking at the 3 minutes as well.
I mean, you just need to give us direction, 3 minutes for one, 3 minutes for both, you know, how do
3
you?
and 3.
3 and 3? All right,
Yeah.
so,
23. No,
You guys already know my opinion on it, so I'm not even going to speak to it.
No, no.
You have the
I mean,
majority.
you're-
My opinion is I like the 5 and 5. I want to hear what the people have to say. As far as saying it in the first meeting versus the second meeting, we're adopting ordinances where the public gets to speak to that ordinance.
Yeah, and that never,
I
that
think
doesn't
that's-
change that, you know, you would
That-
give them
that's
their
important.
time
That's
just
true.
to
That's
testify in
separate.
the ordinances.
But the
That's a
public
separate
comment
issue.
part, they can still, may want to address that issue. I'm just, I always disliked our Board of Ed's 3 minutes. I've always, lived by that. I never liked that. And I'm certainly not going to change my mind now to go down to 3 minutes. So, but the majority is the democracy, and it's the way it is.
Okay, we'll prepare legislation, and, again, you'll have, I believe, I'll have to look and see, but I'm assuming it will be through an ordinance somewhere, depending on how the procedures are set up. I'll have to look. So if that's the case, there'll be further opportunity to discuss it once it's formally introduced, so you'll have some.
know
Is
what?
there any limit on the second ordinance reading? If it's the second reading of an ordinance and there's a public session, public hearing on it, is there any time limitation to that or not?
I mean,
No.
Generally not. I mean, you always have the opportunity to control the meeting.
Right, so for the
if-
ordinances, they will have. time
Ordinance, they'll
to-
always have the time.
Yes, there's always time, but you still have the right to control the meeting. Someone doesn't have the right to come and filibuster,
No.
an ordinance.
No, they need
we can
to,
stop.
right, they need to, right.
As long as there's
But I'm just
germane.
saying, because it's an ordinance
Yeah.
change, the 3 minutes wouldn't apply. They would have time to.
Yes, an ordinance, the expectation is that they would have the opportunity to speak on that ordinance for some reasonable period of time. And again, I would suggest you have the authority to make the judgment call depending on if it's an extremely controversial ordinance and there's 100 people, you have to make adjustment for it versus 1 or 2. But you want to give, because it's essentially your legislative hearing on something, you want to give people sufficient time, and that may be an appropriate circumstance where there is some back and forth where when it's public, the public speaking,
Yeah, I definitely agree
really,
with that. I think
it's a different circumstance
you have to
where
have
it's
a
not
longer
supposed to be a conversation. They have their 3 minutes to make their point and then you respond.
Okay.
I have nothing else, sir.
Okay. With that, I need a motion to open to the public.
Offer, second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Von Rudenberg. Aye. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims. Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Hi. Anybody from the public who'd like to speak, please come forward, give your name and address to the clerk, and you still have 5 minutes until we pass the resolution.
Ordinance. I
Or
guess it's an
ordinance.
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 Okay, good evening, Kathleen Sauer, 47 Lodi Street, Hackensack. I'm not a great lover of pavers, everybody knows that. And it looks good on paper, it looks good when they first put in, but after 5 years, I can show you 10 places on Hudson Street where they're collapsed, and the place that hasn't been fixed yet on Hudson Street that's collapsed and dangerous. 3 reasons. Number 1, because of the climate change, it snows here, it gets warm, it gets hot, they sink. Number 2, the weeds grow between them. Look at Hudson Street, it's disgusting, the weeds all between. The homeowner, the building owner is not gonna go out there and clean the weeds out. I do, but nobody else does. So ride past and see. The grates, I agree with Leo, there is a coating that's baked and it's acceptable and it looks good. The other thing is, do your homework on the trees. You want a dwarf tree. You do not want a bigger spot for the tree to grow, because then the branches take root, they bring the sidewalk up. In New York, all the trees are like, they're like in a girdle. They plant them in little things so they don't grow big. And that's what we have to start doing on Main Street. Because once it could take roots and it could spread, that's when the sidewalk comes up, and we don't want that. There's got to be a uniformity, a continuity for the street. It can't be hodgepodge. And Fran, I need some clarification. We're going to make every developer do it as they go along? How's that going to work? We're not, that's...
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's why you should have opened this up after he
We knew this wasn't going to be long getting.
I don't understand how
Can I
it's going to be
clarify a
done.
few
Sure.
misconceptions that were stated? The detail talks about requiring,
This
Yeah.
one, Fran speaks,
It's okay.
or let it
Yeah,
go?
stop her time for now. It's because we probably should have opened to the public when he was.
so the pavers are embedded in a concrete base so that there is no weeds that come up through. So it's not a paver that is put on sand or a rock base, which eliminates the issue of weeds coming through. So it's a much more stable system than.
We don't have that on Hudson Street.
No, clearly not. What was the question about the trees?
The weeds don't come through. The dirt sits in the little water part of it,
No.
and that's how the weeds come.
No.
I'll show you that all over. That's what happens. I've checked other times.
Okay.
It doesn't come through. Anytime there's dirt, you can see like on the chimney, they show you that thing with the big line. Anytime there's a little bead of dirt, the thing takes through.
Let's get to the trees.
Okay, so the trees, tell me about the trees. We need to find them so they don't.
So statistics across the country prove that streets that have street trees, retail and commercial does better than streets that do not have street trees. So you have to pick a variety of tree that will grow. You require that the tree be pruned up and trimmed up to 8 foot so that there's an 8-foot clear so that none of the branches are down. And you don't want to pick a tree that will grow too large like an oak or a maple. So you want to keep trees that do really well in difficult areas that have a high degree of salt tolerance and a high degree of drought tolerance. And so we picked a few trees that we believe would do well, but would not be overwhelming and over dominant in terms of the root growth like a maple or an oak. So we believe that we have the appropriate trees that would go into this main street and have been successful in a variety of other main streets across the Northeast.
And the variety of trees you showed us are similar to the ones that Mrs. Salvo was speaking about, you would say?
Yeah, I would not recommend to use the what would be a prunus or a zelkova, which are smaller trees, flowering trees on your main street. What you really want to do is the great streets that have this type of commercial, you want a tree canopy that goes from 8 to 10 feet up, so that the retail commercial is actually well
Cased in.
visible
Right.
once the trees reach a certain height, which is why you trim them up to 8 foot. If you have smaller trees like flowering dogwoods and those types of trees, their maximum growth is 15 feet, 15 to 20 feet. And what happens is those trees and the branches and the limbs and the flowers all get in the way of the signage of the commercial and retail. So
Okay.
we believe that it's clear that it should be a larger tree.
We're not doing this as a whole street. We're not doing it like we did Hudson Street or Anderson Street. We're going to do it in bits and pieces.
So the great thing about this is that we have figured out a system whereby the development community will pay for the streetscape in front of their building, and then we're taking the $1.5 million of grant money and we're going to be taking the areas where there's not new development and putting in a new streetscape. So that the goal here is that at least block by block, when I say block by block, I mean facing blocks. So you have an east side of the block and a west side of the block, that if a developer's doing a portion of it, we want to make sure that the city takes the grant money and does the rest of that block and the facing block, so that we get a uniform streetscape all the way down the street. And Pete and Peter Blanos and Wayne and Albert and the city manager have done a great job in getting this amount of money. It's not a small amount of money, and so we're trying to leverage the fact that the developers are paying for portions of the streetscape and taking the grant money and building it all at the same time.
But my question is, we're going to do this in one shot. We're not going to come in and do, because every time you do this, you interrupt.
You can't, can I answer
we are-
that? You
yeah.
can't do it in one shot, because if a developer hasn't, you're not going to put up the streetscape before his building goes up, because then you're going to have to tear it down to build his building. That makes no sense.
Every time this happens, you interrupt business.
So-
And the street is not that wide.
Well, I think a block at a time is a fair way to do it. It would be done a block at a time.
I would say that I'm not sure, Ms. Salvo, if you're aware, but the city's already done is it 2 city blocks or 3 city blocks of streetscape from Ward Street North, right?
We just, yeah.
So we've already done it.
When East Street's one way, now when you do.
No, what I'm saying is we've done it and we've finished it. We're done with it. I don't think there was a tremendous amount of interruption. What we'll do then is we'll go from Ward to Passaic, and then we'll go from Passaic to Berry or Passaic to Camden. So it will be done in stages, but the idea here is that we're doing a whole area at a time.
Right.
You're not going to do all of Main Street. We're already doing a lot on Main Street. We're going to try and do this in a efficient manner, but not disrupt the whole mile and a half.
Every time something is done on these.
Okay, start the clock. You're back on time.
Every time something's done on Main Street, even when they did that, when they went in, they put public service, did those things. People get confused. People lose business. When I go for my nails, she lost a lot of business because people didn't know how to do the detour. So you're interrupting the business people. Hasbakite is doing it all at once now. We did Hudson Street all at once, and we did Anderson Street. I understand that. We need to do Bridge Street because we need to do that corner. That corner has insurance money, so don't give that grant money. Bridge, and we get insurance money for that, and that needs to be taken care of. Because it's a mess. It's been like that over 2 years. And that should be insurance money to do that. Let's leave that undone. All right, the sidewalk, the benches, they need to have segments because people like to sleep on them if they don't. We did that in a couple of our parks, to have the segments. And to keep the furniture away from the curb line, because we had to take them all the way out of Hudson Street because the people were getting their feet runned over the way they were situated. We don't have that much room. So that, and the planters too, because every time you open a car door, they interfere with the flow of everything. But
So these are in grates, so the only planters that we're looking at is at the corners.
Right,
and
so
at
it's
dead
protection.
end.
That's a good idea.
And we know where the parallel parking space is going to be, so we're aware of door swings, and we'll be working to make sure that doesn't interfere with doors.
And also the trees too, that they're not planted in front of signs, like we have some of them, or in front of lights. All right, but there are trees, there are flowering cherries, flowering prunes, flowering prune trees that grow, like he says, the right way. And the grates should be that way, and what else? And the garbage fields too, with no top, so that the garbage doesn't stay on top of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
How you doing? My name is, I never need it. My name is Mark Woods. I represent Paula's Soul Food Cafe. We're new to Hackensack.
Welcome.
We're 331 Main Street. I still laugh about it. Our opening night was overwhelming with everybody that came from Hackensack and supported us from Hackensack and the outer areas. It was just totally crazy. We weren't prepared. We learned the very next day that this is a business that is needed in the city, and a lot of people have been telling us that. A lot of good complaints, a lot of things that they have been talking about that we need to correct within ourselves. But it's awesome. Hackensack is awesome. If anybody rides past Main Street, and they might have seen me sitting in that window for about 4 months waiting for it to open up. So when it finally did, I went, oh my God, we should have waited. So, but it's a good thing. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. I don't want somebody to think that we're just a fly-by-night business. We do have another business in the Bronx. It's a stand-up takeout spot. Has 4 little seats. When we saw this here, it's actually my cousin, Little Omar. His father went to the gym, goes to the gym down the street, and he would go over to sit in Levant City with Harry. And Harry told him that
Harry Comp?
I'm getting kind of tired. Yeah, I'm getting kind of tired. You know, I don't want to do this no more, so I want to sell it. And so, and I've got 35 years of business in the food industry, weddings, so on and so forth. And so my cousin called me. He said, "Get down here now." And he said, "I got." You know, I was getting ready to retire. He said, "Get down. I got it. Before you retire, I got us a retirement spot." So we purchased the spot. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. No, I do not think. I know it's not a bad idea, and we're here to stay. So thank you.
Great. But thank you for coming.
Welcome.
And
Welcome.
best of luck
Happy
to
have
you.
And I just wanted to say we brought some samples with us in the back, you know, a couple of things if
Oh.
you guys want to try, and some menus
Sure.
to give out.
We just so happen to have a closed session meeting.
That's perfect.
If you want, you know, just at the end, just come back and talk to us and more like that.
Don't worry,
Awesome.
we'll be there.
Also, Mr. Sims, Mr. Sims brought a couple of, I didn't even know, he brought a couple of parties in there. We had 2 birthday parties in there already.
Good.
And they said that, you know, the city represent the city, so we're like, wow, this is beautiful.
I have
Good.
a
We thank everybody.
Thank you for coming to Hackensack. We
Congratulations.
appreciate it.
We're gonna be back, Mr.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
The
You're
chicken
welcome.
is really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
331 Main Street.
By Cowens, like by Subway.
Next, please.
Nice to see everybody excited.
Right in between.
Sure, I got it.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
My name is Dennis Sickerson Breeden, Chief of Staff for the City of Newark Law Department and Legislative Director to Assemblyman Benji Wimberly. I'm a native kid of this town, Hackensack High School grad, Nellie K. Parker grad, Hackensack Middle School grad. I left in 2007 to go to college, and I went to law school in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm here before you today to challenge you to enter participants into my organization's breast cancer awareness walk. The Bergen County chapter of the NAACP and the Bergen County chapter of Omega Psi Phi are doing a breast cancer awareness walk on October 7th, Saturday morning, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. All the money and the proceeds will go towards the Betty Torricelli Breast Center. We've been able to procure sponsorship from Chicken Supreme, Chit Chat Diner, the Fit Factory in Inglewood, Nesbitt's Funeral Home, and when is this? Oh, Luciana Law Offices as well. We're taking $10 sign-ups on Eventbrite. I've given you about 5 copies each of the sponsorship letter that has gone out, as well as a copy of the flyer and also some sign-up sheets that you guys can peruse. And just as a sidebar, Deputy Mayor Sims has always been a staple to me and a staple to some of my peers in this community. Growing up, there were a lot of events that garnered communal support. And congratulations to you guys. I was here at you guys swearing in. I just would love to see my county, my city get back to the communal things that we do. And I would like to challenge you guys to all enter in some participants into this walk. I think it'd be a great initiative. No dime is going towards either organization. The sponsorships have solely gone towards the decorations and everything to facilitate the event. And like I said, all the proceeds will be going towards the Betty Torricelli Center. So I just thank you for your time. Deputy Mayor Sims, hello. And on a side note, Mr. Woods' food is very good. I had his sweet potato pie, and I've had his fish and shrimp, and I will tell you that it is fresh, it is good, and I will be going there and getting a sample afterwards. So you fellas have a good night. Oh, I have a card on me. Yes.
Could you tell us what the route is for the walk? Where does it start?
So the walk is going to be at the Hackensack High School track, and what and I know that we may be expecting some survivors, and of all walks, I mean all age brackets. So we're only expecting people to walk a lap. $10 sign-ups to walk a lap. If you want to walk more, we'll have 50-50 raffle tickets we'll give off, but. We're only requiring people to walk a lap. It'll be around the track. We're looking to still procure vendors as well. So if the council persons know vendors that would like to come out, if they know potential sponsors that may want to throw some more sponsorship behind this, even down to the school districts, I've contacted the assistant superintendent who is going to be reaching out to Dr. Montesano, and hopefully, this can fluctuate through the districts as well. Because we would like the school district support on this. And I will pass you one of my cards, sir.
Dennis, if you don't mind, I think this council will put a team together to walk one lap.
I could do that.
I'll be right behind you.
Dennis,
I'll be in front of you, Dave.
He did say one lap.
One lap.
One lap.
He said, has sponsored 12 names. I will get 12 names that's going to walk with me and the mayor and deputy mayor and the council. We even might get Ted down here.
Thank you, council, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please. How are you, sir?
Thank you for that segue. My name is Michael Hammond. I'm a longtime resident of Hackensack. I'm here on 115 Lawrence Street. Just on the heels of what Dennis is talking about, my background is public health education. I did research at UNC Chapel Hill Public School for 14 years and UNC School of Medicine. I'm currently now at the 24-Hour Fitness here in Paramus. I'm lucky to have employed 4 Hackensack High School grads who work for me as well.
Wonderful.
The thing what I spoke with Deputy Mayor Sims about is I would like to talk to the city manager regarding a reduced membership rates for the city of Hackensack employees. Currently, Patterson and Inglewood are benefiting from this. We have the educators and the police departments benefiting from it. So I would like to bring that to our attention.
Deputy Mayor Sims brought that to my attention. The health officer has already been contacted, and you'll hear from them.
Okay, look for that. I have some brochures. Want to handle some brochures?
Great.
Mike, you want to give them your phone number so they can reach out to you because they're spearheading this?
Just write your name and cell number. I'll get back to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Do you have a pool in the place?
So my name is Amanda. Oh, sorry.
Michael, he has a question for you.
Do you have a pool in the place?
Yes, you do. I have a pool. Towel services included as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, young lady.
I'm Amanda.
Mike, do you know about what the fee might be?
Yeah, we have something in place where I have the corporate support team that'll come in and give you a presentation of the typical templates that we have across the entire country. We have 400 plus clubs, and we didn't do this in different local municipalities across the country. So the rates will get down to as low as $37.99 a month. Our typical rate is $59. Right now, we currently have a lot of Hackensack educators, employees that do come through,
362?
looking to participate.
362?
We done?
Okay, done.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike,
All right, young lady, go ahead.
I'm Amanda. I live, hearing my voice, I'm somewhere. I live at 5 Anderson Street. Coming up on almost a year in December. So I have issues with parking. I noticed that the streets around my apartment have a sign for 2-hour parking unless you have a residential sticker. So I did go and apply for that, but I was denied because I was told that my building, particularly 5 Anderson, does not, we're not eligible. So I also am an employee at Hackensack Hospital full-time. I work in the evening, so usually what happens is overnight, my mother, she lives with me. She can park in the doctor's office overnight. They have no problem with that. And in the morning, she would go to work and she has no parking issue. I work in the evenings, and during the day, I have no place to put my car. I'll try to, park on the street, try to move it every few hours, try to get a metered spot, hopefully, and not fall back asleep because, I do sleep during the day usually. So I just I wasn't sure if anyone was aware that my particular building, all the residents in my building don't have eligibility for a residential sticker. My mom, also just got let go from her job. So, sorry. She's gonna have a problem soon as well with her vehicle, and I don't want to put more stress on her.
What I will do is I'll have the city manager look, he'll deal with traffic division who deals with that.
If you just
You
supply
give
me
him
your
your
name and
contact
telephone
number?
I'll
Sure.
reach back out to you.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
what's going on over there. And hopefully we can come to a happy resolution.
Name, address, and cell number, and I'll call you.
X.
Can't see what time it is up there.
It's almost 7:30. You could step forward while she's filling that out if you want to.
Yeah. You can come up, Perry.
Come on, Perry.
Thank you so much.
I didn't want to interrupt what was taking place
That's
on the
okay.
platform, what she had to take care of, because I'm I'm a person who don't rush into things, because I know that when you rush into things, not a lot get accomplished.
Is the mic on?
And,
Having
It's
trouble
on.
hearing you? Okay.
yeah, it's on and open to being heard. If you listen, I might also express what is of importance. I don't know if it was also mentioned once before or not at all, yet the TV station, which is with Hackensack Public School, middle school, high school, if the town hall meetings have ever been discussed with broadcasting them as an option to televising them, if they have not been syndicated or televised on the Cablevision network. Why not broadcast it on public station for school use, for educational use? And I said that was one idea. I'm not leaving Hackensack. I'm a Hackensack resident, and I know that Hackensack has a lot to offer. It has more to offer than a lot of people may presume. I don't look at money as being the start and finish, the end all, the beginning of all, but it is essential to getting a lot of things established. Cannot get much done without financially overviewing what you have to get done, and even that is with individually, household-wise, and also with business companies and the longevity towards its progression. Berkshire and Hathaway, the business and company office on Main Street in Hackensack, that building and office seems to be a very good, nice location. And it was also mentioned by one of the people earlier while I was at some of the meetings that what are they going to do with Main Street? Well, Main Street has got two sides. You have the Woolworth side and you have the other side that's being worked on. I think it was mentioned, how are they going to actually get that situation well balanced with the long process of things that have been, planned with the planning board and all the organized committees for buildings, plants, tree, growth, and all the necessary things that keeps the city functioning and operating and running. The point that I had made the last time I was here was the person who mentioned that what he had called the historical buildings. The historical buildings was one of the things I said we should think about, talk about, and we should also consider what he had to say. Though I didn't mention what the person's name was, I said he was making a point that should have been clearly heard out and not just, overlooked. So all things being considered, I'm here to stay. Congratulations, everybody on the staff and the board of the council meeting, the mayor, David Sims, and Battaglia, who is here, Canestrino, everyone. Just keep doing a good job and keep looking after everybody's well-being.
Thank you.
And guess what? Everything will work out well for everyone.
Thank you, Perry.
Thank you, Perry. Yes, and just in reference to what Mr. Jackson was talking about, we do televise Mr. Jackson, Perry, on both Cablevision and FiOS for our council meetings, and it's also available on YouTube, on the internet, every meeting, including this one, the cow session. So anybody else from the public like to speak?
Debbie has my information. This isn't a particularly brilliant revelation, but it did occur to me while the discussion was on, so I'll mention it. It goes something like this. If 3 minutes is too short, and if a lot of the time 5 minutes is too long, what about 4 minutes?
You use only one.
But that's a middle-of-the-road comment, Bob. Very well done. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Seeing none, motion to close to the public.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Need a motion to go into closed session?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims. Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye.
Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to discuss certain actions under section 7B7 and 7B8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, which pertains to matters falling within attorney-client privilege, ongoing litigation of personnel matters concerning the employment of a current or prospective public employee. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack is of the opinion that such circumstances may presently exist, And whereas the mayor and council wishes to discuss the following issues: personnel matters, ongoing litigation, matters involving attorney-client privilege, matters involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiations. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to exclude the public from this discussion. The outcome of the discussion will be disclosed within 90 days or at such time as the interests of the city do not require confidentiality.
I do have one case, another workers' comp case, Sroka versus Hackensack.
Who?
Sroka, S-R-O-K-A. Sroka, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We are enclosed.